Shooby dooby doo.
So I'll have it open. You're up on stage. Elizabeth should be doing roughly the same thing.
Okay. This is awesome. I'm so excited. So good. You like are so excited and confident. This is great. Yeah. It only makes you a little nervous when it's live.
Yeah.
And it's live.
And then you're
But also at the same time, it forces you to give your best performance because you know it's live.
like, exactly.
As people come in,
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
Fabulous to see you. As do you. Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us today for Never a Bother Real Talk from Native Youth on mental health and suicide prevention. My name is Sahar Kajanori, and I'm honored to represent FNX TV First Nations Experience Television as we partner with the Never a Bother campaign to host this important conversation. So mental health and suicide prevention are critical issues in Native communities. And for too long, these challenges have carried stigma, making it harder for individuals, especially our young people, to seek the help they need. But today, we are here to change that. Never Bother campaign, launched in the spring of 2024 by the California Department of Public Health's Office of Suicide Prevention, reminds youth and young adults that reaching out for support is a sign of strength and not a burden. It encourages friends, peers, and trusted adults to let young people know that they are always available for help. And what makes this campaign truly impactful is its foundation. It was built for youth, by youth, through 34 partnerships of youth-serving community-based organizations and tribal entities. Never a Bother ensures that its message resonates deeply, especially with those disproportionately impacted by youth suicide. So the result is a multicultural, multilingual effort that raises the awareness of mental health resources and fosters help-seeking behaviors. So today's panel reflects that work bringing together Native youth to share their unique insights and lived experiences, and their voices are vital to promoting resilience in our communities. But before we begin, I'd like to thank our incredible partners: Sierra Native Alliance, Two Feathers Native American Family Services, and the Native American Health Center, the Sierra Health Foundation, and KVCR Public Media, as well as our friends at the Civilian Agency for bringing us together. I also want to recognize the youth who traveled across California to join us today. Your courage and willingness to share this makes this conversation possible. Now, it's my privilege to introduce Mateo Ortega, the Youth Program Coordinator at Sierra Native Alliance, who will guide us through this meaningful conversation. Mateo, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. My name is Mateo Moctezuma Ortega. I am the Youth Program Coordinator with Sierra Native Alliance. Sierra Native Alliance is a cultural resource agency located in Auburn, California. We provide culturally relevant resources, community wellness activities, as well as behavioral health services to our Native youth and families in the area for over 15 years. As we get this conversation started today, I would like to take a moment to recognize and acknowledge the severity of this conversation, and also take a moment to recognize and acknowledge some of our relatives who have died by suicide. As we all know, mental health and suicide prevention knows no boundaries, and all of us are affected by this epidemic, no more so than our Native communities across the nation. And we are honored to be gathered here today with some of our youth leaders here from California who are going to share and help us understand a little bit more about how mental health and suicide affect their specific communities here in California. So big thank you to our youth panels up here for joining us today and this afternoon. And would like to start off with Miss Penelope, if she could please share with us what motivated you to become a youth leader in your community, and what connected you with the suicide prevention and the Never Bother project.
Yes. What motivated me to get connected in this project was to just show youth that their voices matter and that you're never a bother, and that getting the help and the resources is really important so you don't go down a unhealthy way of coping with depression or mental health. Yes.
Excellent, excellent. And if you could, Penelope, how long have you been a youth leader? How did you get involved? Was there anybody who motivated you, or did you just find it on a bus stop ad or something?
How I got in contact was through SF in the Bay Area. I had been working with Indian Ed, the Indian education, and then I got in contact with the Native American Health Center, where I had fell in love with giving the youth a voice and showing youth that it's okay to get help and reach out for help. And I've been doing it for about a year now, and I love it. I'm so happy that I'm out here showing youth that you're never bothered and that it's okay to express your help, what help you need, and that mental health is important.
Absolutely. Thank you, Penelope. Kimora,
Thank you.
if you could please share with us what motivated you to become a youth leader in your community, and then what connected you to the Suicide Prevention Never a Bother project?
A lot of my younger cousins were, doing a lot of dumb things. And so I was like, hey, I should probably be somebody to, talk to them and encourage them to do good things. And getting involved with the Never Bother project, right? Is that the question?
Yeah. How'd you get involved, or why is the Never Bother project, special to you? Like, why are you connected to this project?
Our organization, Two Feathers, we're doing a film series with youth, and I'm really into digital storytelling with, I think that Native people should be able to say their stories and tell them. And I think with the past history of suicides in our community, getting that message out there that other people have struggled with it too and that they have gotten help is very important to me. So I'm happy to be a part of those projects.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate that, Kimora. And I think all of us kind of get into those leadership mentor roles on accident, right? Whether we're older cousins or older aunties or uncles or just good friends out there, it just kind of falls into our lap. So appreciate you sharing that, Kimora. Thank you. Miss Vicky, can you please tell us in your own words how your tribal community views and handles and talks about mental health and suicide?
Well, I feel like at first, how it is in predominantly every community. At first, it's shame brought upon the community. It's embarrassment, it's weakness. But through things like social gatherings, and we talked about it last night over dinner too. We talked about what brings us close, experiences, sharing resources, connecting, really making sure that we are never truly a bother. And it truly starts with us in the community. Elders, like Kimora has said, digital storytelling. How do you get your message out there? Teaching that to the younger youth. Then, it's like a rock that's rolling, and it's progressing, and it's going further, and it's hitting areas that it hasn't reached. And then from there, you kind of connect with youth on their level and, making sure that they're heard, making sure that they belong somewhere, that they have a voice, that culture is prevention. So.
Absolutely correct. I do think, with older generations, it was kind of, you don't talk about it. It was kind of seen as shameful or weak or anything like that. But I do believe in what you're saying is it's what Never Bother does is making this conversation easier, reducing those stigmas, and you're not seen as weak. You're just seen as someone who needs some support, needs some help. Are you noticing any changes in your community through this project, or have you noticed any changes at all from what you're used to seeing to now?
Yeah, it's a funny story. Before I even jumped onto this, I was part of the Native Youth Wellness Initiative project, which happened back in 2014, 2015, and that was through SAMHSA. So I was really heavily involved with the beginning stages of suicide prevention, and at that time I was still a youth. I was just about Penelope's age, so that's where I started getting my feet, in there, and me myself, I was going through my own experiences. My fellow peers were going through, their own experiences. And back then it was I was afraid to ask for, some kind of therapy or help or just even somebody to talk to. And if it wasn't for the Native American Health Center introducing me to different resources and avenues and taking me to these gatherings, I would have never been here in this very position, being able to talk alongside my peers, making sure that, the youth have a voice. But yeah, I think it's very different now compared to how it was then. And I feel like if we just keep it going, we're going in the right path. Yes, it's a very hard topic, but, when we get on, platforms like this and we share our experiences, that's how we connect. That's how we move together as a unit, as a community.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for sharing that perspective. Going to move on to the next question is for Kishan. If you could please share with us, what are you noticing are some of the leading factors or what's contributing to youth suicide in your community and Native communities that you work with?
Yeah, so for that, I would say a big contributing factor would be substance use would be a very big one. But secondly, and most importantly, would be the fear of like not knowing who to reach out to, or if you do reach out, the fear of not being believed or taken seriously. I believe that is a big issue, like holding people back from speaking on their issues. And yeah, just like not knowing who to go to or like how to get the resources that you may need for this topic, and yeah, not knowing, always knowing how to get help.
Yeah, I mean, you make up a very, very good point. You know, just finding the courage to have the conversation is one barrier. Knowing who to talk is another barrier. Finding where to go for help is another barrier. So all of you guys, what you're sharing here today is just, you know, instilling a lot of inspiration out there. So thank you for sharing that perspective. Penelope, do you have something to add as far as some of the leading factors that you're seeing from your community and the Native youth that you work for of what's causing youth suicide and mental health needs?
To add on, what's causing suicide and like mental health issues is trauma and grief is one big thing, and generational trauma too. Also, substance use and alcoholism and social media. Social media is a big thing nowadays for the youth, and what we're putting out on the internet and what we're showing the youth is it's a I wouldn't say non-realistic, but a reality that is not so true, because everyone puts out what they want on social media and what they want you to see and how they're having. Like, I'm having a fun time in life, but no one really knows what they're going through because they're not putting themselves out there crying or putting themselves out there going through a bad mental health or a breakdown. Like, they project what they want to see, that what they think people will think they're cool, and just social media being a big thing on why people struggle with this, and also identity and their sexuality and finding themselves and not feeling okay with themselves and not knowing if I want to be this or that, and not knowing, like what she said, who to come to, who to talk to, if they feel safe to even open up with people, because it's really about the relationships you keep around you and who you have with you and how good your relationship is with people and how you want to express yourself, because opening up with trauma and grief and mental health is a struggle that will take time to work with, and that it can take years, months, weeks, and that you'll never fully heal from your trauma, but you can find ways to cope with it in the best ways instead of facing to alcohol and drugs and other ways of coping with it, which feels like it's going to be forever, but it's not.
Thank you. I wanted to follow up. You know, in working with youth, I do hear a lot about substance use in schools and everything. And I just want to ask how prevalent it is in your community and your schools. Is it as bad as what people say it is? And what kind of substances are you seeing out there? Just a little insight, if you would, as far as the substance use in your communities.
Substance use in my community is so normalized. Even on social media, it's so normalized. Like, somebody will be posting themselves with bottles, drugs, smoking, weed, everything. And kids will think that's cool. But at the end of the day, that's a depressant on your mental health. And that just makes you more sad. And you'll start feeling these ways. And you're like, well, I'm coping with it. I'm not feeling like this right now. But once you start facing your trauma and your grief and your mental health forward, you'll realize, like, I really could have done this a different way. I really could have coped in different ways instead of just facing to something that you see everyone else do. And in my community, drugs are really, they're just around me. I grew up with people who were alcoholics and doing drugs, and I normalized it. I normalized it being to me, and that this is how people coped. And now knowing that this is not normal, this is a way that they're helping themselves cope, which I will never shame nobody for how they cope, but it's just not the right way to cope. And when they're ready to get help, I'm ready to help. But in my community, in my high school, it is very normalized, which is sad, but it's a way to not shame them, but to try to help them believe that there's other ways. And yes, you might not be able to get off it right now, but we can always work and build steps to becoming a better person and becoming the person you truly want to be.
Thank you. And you bring up a very, very valid point there of cope versus cover, right?
Mm-hmm.
As far as when people are trying to heal themselves in one way or the other.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Vicky, I know you wanted to add something to that too, as far as some of the leading factors that you're seeing contributing towards Native youth mental health and suicide.
We had a whole big conversation about this yesterday, and I'm really glad we're talking about this. There's a lot of things that are contributing to it, and it could even be like as far as someone having a really hard time because maybe their loved one or just recently got incarcerated. Things that are normalized. Them needing help, them having a hard time doing something as simple as not knowing how to read, and they need help with that, and it leads to one thing and it leads to another. But I feel like there's a lot of things that have gotten normalized, and platforms like this, when we get together, we're trying to figure out wellness tools, right? Ways that we can cope with how we're feeling, because like Penelope said earlier, you never really know what somebody's truly going through until you sit down and you have a one-on-one conversation with them and you're really connecting with them. And, they can be the happiest person in the room. They can be really high functioning. They can walk in the room and they can be like, yeah, I'm having a great day, and then they can say something that can be a total joke to you and you might not catch it. And then it's right there in that instant that you find out later on, you're like, whoa, I would have never thought, if just people would have just took the time to just sit down and just pay attention, observe, absorb, and, read up, there's plenty of resources out there. And if you don't know, there's plenty of other people that do probably know around you about it, but yeah.
Thank you. Kimora, this next one is for you. What are you finding or thinking are the best and most effective prevention strategies for youth and Native youth in particular?
I'm going to have Keish join me on this one because we were talking about this last night of the different ways that youth go and heal, like what would we call that?
The healing journey?
Healing journey, like their healing journey and the resources they need to help them. Could you ask that question one more time? I'm so sorry. These lights are
No, you're
bugging
good.
me.
You're good. Just from your perspective and maybe Keishan's perspective as well, what prevention strategies are you guys finding and seeing out there that are most effective for youth and specifically Native youth? What are helping them with, coping and their mental health needs and just supporting them along their way?
The non-Western type of counseling, I think, like approaching it, being in a room where Keish was talking about this, I'm basically copying word for word, but like where somebody's writing down what you're saying and not giving you not connecting to you and not really getting to know you and just seeing you for the reason why you're in that space. For Two Feathers, we do a lot of gathering. We do a lot of like outside counseling things. We call it truck talk, which is basically us going out into the woods, doing stuff with our pod leaders and doing various things. Like we do weaving class and what else do we do? Regalia making and all that kind of stuff. So like those I think have been very effective because people are finally being able to connect to their culture and which is a big part of them and their identity. And they just, they feel like they're seen, given opportunities that they've not been given before. And I think that's like one of the best approaches. And most of our counselors at our place are like seen as aunties and uncles, not really like, oh, that's my counselor, blah, blah, blah. They like really make it feel like a community. Yeah. That's it.
Keishan, did you have anything to add to that? That question was supposed to be for the both of you.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much exactly what Kimora said. For like a big thing, I would say is culture is healing, not to point out the obvious, but yeah, building your community around your culture, finding your place, finding where you belong. Like I'm currently on my own journey of like adulthood, womanhood, finding my new place and where I belong in my culture. So I would definitely say that is a big thing. But yeah, also building a relationship like outside of the office and like just actually being able to bond with your person. Like you don't want to have to talk to your people because you're being forced to talk to your people. You want to be able to talk to your people because you feel comfortable talking to your people. So yeah, I think that's just like a very main thing. But also, yeah, culture is healing.
Oh, thank you. And, I'll pose a question to everyone on the panel here. Just how important has culture played into your well-being or just working with youth in general? How important has culture been in making those relationships? And you guys almost answered it already.
I feel like culture has really helped me heal in my journey, as in finding myself and finding my true identity in my Native identity and knowing that I'm Native enough to feel native, you know, and knowing that it's going to take time, because time is the big thing with healing, is that it's not be by tomorrow that you're going to feel okay, or you might feel okay, but the next day you might just go sad, fine, happy, I'm feeling great, you know. It's going to take time to process your emotions and know that you're going to be okay and that there's ways to cope with this.
Vicky, do you have anything to add?
I felt like it's culture has kept me grounded. Never truly losing sight of who I really am, because I'm Native American, Hawaiian, Mexican. So it's like I have like a lot of. When I first started, I had like a little identity, you know, self-crisis, and you know, kind of like my mom was well known in the community. So it's like when I did seek out to like try to get that help, I was kind of nervous. I'm like, I don't really know if I can trust anyone, you know, because you know, community knows community, you know. So, but once I did that, I felt like, you know, I felt better, you know. Culture really keeps me grounded, and I'm still working in my community. I started off as a youth participant, you know, did internships like the fellowship and then the NIWI stuff, flew all over, did, you know, a conference at Washington, and then came back and still wanted to still work with the Native agency. So it's kept me grounded and still in tune.
Thank you all for sharing, and you know, you guys bring up wonderful points as far as identity and knowing your culture, knowing yourself, and definitely the question of who am I? And you get in a lot of confusion when you're looking at social media, right? Social media is telling you who you are versus do you know who you are in your own spirit, in your own household, right? Are your relatives teaching you these things, all right? So definitely a big conflict there for our youth dealing with their own identity and what people are telling them their identity are. So thank you for sharing that part. Next question is for you too, Vicky. From your perspective and the things that you've gone through, how can parents and caregivers become better at contributing and preventing suicide and improving mental health of their youth and their nieces, their nephews? Just tell us your thoughts on how parents and caregivers and providers can do better.
I feel like kind of like what we're all touching on is saying, paying attention, listening, being there, really being there and being non-judgmental. It might not be big to you, but it might be very big for them. Even taking the biggest steps as sharing and being vulnerable, you know, having that emotional vulnerability with you, you know, being susceptible and open-minded to it. Like, okay, you know, they're coming to me for a reason. How can I, if I can't help them, who do I know or where can I go that can? You know, just really being there, mindful and open about it. And if, you know, like I said earlier, if you're not really too sure about, you know, what you're walking into or what you're facing, always ask for help. There's a community of people behind you. Like Penelope has a community of people behind her. You know, Kamora, Kashan, you know, we all have people behind us and we just don't know unless we know we speak up and we ask for help. And there's no shame in that. It truly isn't.
Absolutely, absolutely. Kamora?
Can you ask that question again? Sorry.
In your honest opinion, if you're talking to all the parents and caregivers out there, what do you suggest to them on best ways on preventing suicide and improving mental health for youth out there?
Be a better community, I guess, with your family, with the people around you. You know, check in on people, notice signs, and everything she just said was very amazing. But, you know, don't worry about why somebody had, you know, committed suicide, instead of like actually being there and talking with them and seeing what's wrong with them so that they don't make decisions like that. So be better, guys. Please.
Absolutely. Kishan?
Yeah, well, I don't want not to repeat myself, but I cannot stress the fact enough that mental health looks different for everybody. Therefore, prevention strategies are going to look different for everybody. And me, with my personal journey, I didn't want to do the whole therapy counselor type of thing. And then when I finally did agree to it, I walked in the room, the lady sat down on the couch, had me take a drug test, and then wrote down everything I was saying. So like I said, I cannot stress enough to like build a relationship and like community outside of just the therapy and the counseling. And yeah, everything everybody up here has said is just so spot on. But yeah, I just cannot stress enough that it is important to do less talking and more listening, and don't be afraid to ask the question. I recently learned in a QPR training that asking somebody if they are feeling suicidal is not going to make them commit suicide. So beating around the bush really isn't going to do you any good. Like, you need to be vulnerable and be brave enough to ask those type of questions.
Thank you, Keishan. I was going to follow up with you guys, and I think you kind of answered it, but I would love to hear from the rest of you. If you could give one suggestion to the parents, caregivers, providers out there, and someone who's sitting there with the youth across the table or on the other side of the couch, whatever it is, and they're thinking about it, how do I ask? How do I help? I want to say something. What do you suggest to them? What's the best thing for them to do? How to do it? What do you think? What's one suggestion, if you guys could?
I'll go. Like I said, in the QPR training, I just learned that asking the question is not going to make somebody do that. So that's really as real as it gets, is to ask the question. If you might think that there's any reason giving you to think that, then my best advice would be to ask the question.
Reach out, connect. Oh.
Excellent. Thank you. This one is going to go to Ms. Kimura. If you could please tell us a few unique ways that your program has worked with the Never Bother campaign to make suicide prevention materials and tools that are relevant specifically to your community. So how have you used the Never Bother materials to connect with the youth in your community?
We do social media posts on the main page of our organization and a youth page that we have that I kind of run. I'm trying to run the whole thing. We also do filming projects. We had already finished one. It's called The Healing Journey. I don't know how to pronounce it, but the name of it's in Karuk, but I don't speak that, so I'm not going to mispronounce that. It's just these interviews with these kids. The main reason why we started this, because Keishan did a video before talking about her healing journey. What was it called?
The Healing Journey.
Basically copied and pasted. That's how we roll. But we interviewed these kids and the youth ambassadors specifically, because we have really large youth ambassador programs where we hire at-risk youth. And we basically were like, hey, we're doing this thing. You guys are going to be good in this video. Woohoo. And we did these, interviews where they opened up and talked about their past. And the last one we did was on substance use. And this one, we're going to be focusing on the topics of suicide prevention and two-spirit identities and how people are coping with that in our Native community, because we're in such a rural area. It's Northern California. Like, we're in a Valley Bowl area. It's like an hour away from the nearest Costco, but like in the mountain areas, there's like nothing by us. We're by Oregon, guys. Trinity River, Klamath meets. But talking with these kids, like them opening up and being able to, speak their truth and not feel like they're being overshadowed, or I guess being forced to portray a certain way of how mental health is. Like, if it's, it's always going to be good, like, oh, our organization does the best things for these kids. We're the only reason. But we don't do that. We try to make sure that we're like I guess telling them like, hey, we're here to help them out, but we're just like people along their journey, and they have a really bright future ahead. And yeah, that's one of the best ways, because people in the past haven't been able to talk about their stories. Even if they have, they've not been believed. And so I think it's very important to have these videos be out in our community for that reason. Mic drop.
Thank you, Kimura. And yeah, you're in Northern California, like California, Northern California.
Yes, sir.
Any of those social media posts or the video interviews that you have done that stand out the most to you, that really like kind of stuck with you the most? And you don't have to put anybody on blast and share any of their names or anything like that, but just any of the projects that you did specifically, any of those ones touch you or stayed with you?
I think that like there's a lot of people my own age that I knew a lot of their story, but I never really saw them put emotion to it. And when I was able to see that, it kind of made me realize that like a lot of the hurt that they hold, it's still fresh to them, even though the scar wound doesn't, it's not open anymore. And so like these little stories of like build up, they're very important to me, because like they're able to express it in a place where they're in a safe zone, where they won't, feel like, I guess, in trouble. I think that's a main thing. If people speaking up, they're scared they're going to get sent to like a psych ward, or, be ripped away and lose opportunities for things. And so like we're able to provide that and then afterwards follow up with our services or people within the community if we're not able to do those services. So I think every story really has touched me, and I really like doing these projects. Thanks Sierra Health Foundation for sponsoring.
Absolutely. Shout out to Sierra Health Foundation always. Anybody else would like to share how they've used the Never a Bother materials to connect with their community, connect with their youth? Just want to share their experiences.
A way that our organization, Native American Health Center in San Francisco and Oakland, are using Never a Bother in their campaign is, what is your medicine? What makes you feel good, as in dancing, listening to music, cooking, beading, basket weaving, anything. What is your medicine? What makes you feel good? What makes you forget everything in that moment? And what makes you feel like you are just having the best moment of your life and there's no worries, no stress. I don't have to do this by tomorrow. Like, what is your medicine that makes you feel good?
No?
She got this.
She
Spot on.
got it. No, I love it. I love it. That's kind of one of the things we work with the youth too, is just identifying their medicine. And if you could, or if you guys are okay with it, do you guys want to share what one of your medicines are? What helps heal you, or what helps you connect with the youth?
One of my medicines is, I'm a fancy dancer, and I jingle dance and I bird dance, and I just love dancing and praying while I'm dancing, and I just feel like that's my medicine. That's when I feel the most free, and that's when I feel like I don't have to be judged, and that I'm out here praying and my ancestors are listening to me and they know my heart and they know what I'm praying for, whether I'm saying it or not. They know my heart.
I guess what's my medicine is the youth. I'm a youth worker, and I work with all ages of youth all the way to like 17, 18. And so just being there with them truly just keeps me like feeling youthful. And, the cultural and traditional workshops that we do, we bring to them, and, they're learning how to do stuff for the very first time, or they're unsure of, where they come from. All that is like, wow, like, I get to be here. I get to be with these youth, and we're learning together. We're growing together, and it's something I've always told the kids, I learn from you just as much as you learn from me. There's never just you looking up here at me like I'm an adult or something. It's like I can learn from you too. So they're my medicine.
Love it, love it. Keishan or Kimora, do you want to share what your medicine is for yourselves, if you're okay with that?
Yeah, like Kamor mentioned, I think my medicine would be our quote-unquote truck talks, like being out, gathering, just being out there like in the world and just talking about real life stuff and just being comfortable and not, like I said, not feeling forced to talk or, whatever the case may be, but just really just being out there and just connecting to my culture in different ways. So yeah.
I like water. Water is really cool. We have our rivers, Trinity and Klamath Rivers, and the Klamath River has removed, I think, 4 dams, and I'm actually supposed to be kayaking down those in 2025. And water really just keeps me, hopeful, excited. I hate winter because it gets cold and dry. Well, not really where I live, but like it's just cold, and I'm like, dude, I'm holding on for summer, next summer, so I can go swimming with my cousins. But that and gathering, like I said before, with Quiche, truck talks are really good, and gathering, and I think weaving, because that teaches you a lot. Because like, look at that. We didn't make this, by the way, what's on Quiche's head, but a lot of patience was in that hat. I'll tell you that. But yeah, those are where I feel powerful and strong. And what? Sorry. I can't read your lips. I'm sorry.
Well, thank you for sharing your medicines, and I think it's important that you guys just open up and share kind of what helps heal you, because there might be people out there who don't have an idea what their medicine is, right? And they might want to try dancing or gathering or maybe going to an elder or something like that and learning a craft or something. So thank you for sharing what helps you, and maybe a youth out there could find some medicine for themselves as well. And this one is going to go for the panel, but we're going to start with Ms. Penelope. If you could just provide a summary statement about suicide prevention and what gives you hope, what gives you inspiration. What would this be for your community? What would be your summary statement?
What gives me hope for my community and like just anyone out there struggling with mental health is this panel right here, showing that you are never a bother and that your voice matters, whether you feel like it doesn't. And me and all of us just sitting up here sharing our own experiences and what's going on in our lives and what's going on in our communities, that we're out here showing you that you can speak up and show that you struggle with mental health, we struggle with mental health, and that it's not a bad thing and it's not a taboo thing to talk about. It's very much a real thing and a real issue in life.
Vicky?
Yeah, kind of like when Penelope touched on, there's always something new to learn from it. And me just being here, because not much of the panel knows, like I'm terrified of public speaking. So me being up here, it takes a lot of courage to come up here and, voice what they've all been voicing the whole time, that you're truly never bothered and don't ever feel like your voice doesn't matter. But yeah.
Could you ask that question one more time? I'm so sorry.
Absolutely. Can you please provide a summary statement about suicide prevention and what gives you hope in your community and for the Native youth that you work with?
Just like the ways of mental health and the journeys of it. There's not one way to share a story. There's not one form of healing, and I think that there's a lot of trial and error with that. So please be patient with it, because it sometimes feels like a long time, like before it happens. I think I was 18 when I finally actually started in a healthy way, living and acting and being. So, if you feel like you are too old to go reach out for these services, or too old to make these connections or do anything to really reach out with people, you're not. I'm just going to say that. You're not ever too old or too young. And yeah, please reach out. Do things that inspire you, that bring love to you, bring joy, even if it's something silly, like, I don't know, like digging dirt sometimes. I don't know. Whatever you want to do. Find that passion, find that joy, and, work through your stuff. Yeah. That's it.
Like Penelope said, what gives me hope is like seeing us youth up here. Well, not only youth, but just knowing that we are brave enough to tell our stories and use our voices, and just up here being heard, and like filming my personal healing journey, or like Two Feathers now filming all the things that they're filming, the short storytelling. But that's what's giving me hope, is like knowing that the youth are coming out and being brave enough to tell their stories, to not only heal themselves, but to heal others and let others know that they are not alone, that they are never a bother.
Never a bother, guys.
Yeah, thank you very much to every one of you for sharing that. I think it does show a lot of inspiration and hope for a lot of youth out there, that you guys are being vulnerable and having these conversations. I know what inspired me were movie icons and sports athletes and stuff who spoke out on their mental health, but it would have been great to have peers to speak out on it. And I found that over time, right? But at such a young age, for you guys to speak up on your healing paths and how you guys support youth in your communities, I think that is what inspires the most hope, and being able to have these conversations on a live stage, right? And stepping up to some of these fears that you guys might have in front of a camera, right? But when it comes to mental health and well-being, that's really where the problem is, and inspiring people to have those conversations. So lights, camera, that's nothing compared to some of the conversations that we've had out there. So thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and perspectives and opinions from your communities. Are we going to do questions right now, or are we just going to do what are we doing right now? No? No, okay. Well, with that being said, then, just want to give again a big thank you to all of our panelists and for their time and their travels, for coming down here and for being brave and sharing their thoughts and perspectives. And just want to give a message out there to all the parents and caregivers and providers who support our youth out there in the community. The lives of our young ones, they could be fun and exciting a lot of the times, but like many of us adults, our youth do go through stressful and overwhelming times out there. So it's very important that we check in with our young ones on a regular basis and ask them how they're doing, and always remind them that they're never a bother to you when it comes to their well-being and their mental health. And if you are needing some resources, please visit the neverabother.org website to locate resources near you and to find a provider that relates to you most. So again, thank you very much for everyone
you.
who's here, all the panelists that are here, everyone out there in the interweb sphere and stuff on the line watching us. So again, thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, and happy birthday, Joanne. We love you. Best weaving teacher in NorCal. Love you, girl. Do we just sit up here?
So